In persecution, you need God's perspective. God's perspective is essential in persecution. So first, recognize that opposition is always about exclusivity. Second, respond to it with wisdom, a serpent dove-like wisdom. And then third, you need God's perspective. You have to zoom out a little bit and recognize that this kind of thing always happens. Always happens. You know, you can't, there's a weakness in American evangelicalism of robe ripping and freaking out about how this latest attack from the culture is going to be, this is too much. Too much. I'm grumbling right there as I go to vote. Had it up to here. This country's going. You know, come on. Zoom out a little bit. Are things bad? I guess. Are they getting worse? I don't know. I suppose. But they're always like this. Just consider the book of Ezra. They were like this back then. And even as Ezra is describing the first beginning of the temple, he's giving you a period here of 80 years, and he's talking about through the whole 80 years, this stuff's always happening. It's always happening. So don't panic about your little persecution you experience at one moment. Darius was the strongest Persian king ever, and he shut down the building of God's program. But God raised up Nehemiah, who came and got it going again. I mean, that's the point. Wherever there's opposition, God responds to it. The opposition had short-term success. They stopped the building for 16 years. Think about that. If you're 20 years old, that means the temple has been stopped being under construction your whole life. And you think of, things in D.C. They were working on the Washington Monument, I think, for the first 6 years I worked here. Were they building a whole new one underneath that thing? It just seems like it takes forever, but then zoom out and realize not really. And the concept of eternity, 16 years is nothing. The wicked may prosper for a moment. God's enemies may seem to have victory after victory, but they're not going to win the war. So you don't want to underestimate Satan's power, but you don't want to overestimate it either. You don't want to devalue opposition in society, but you don't want to overreact either. Underestimating the opposition would be not taking the threat seriously. No, they certainly took it seriously. Overestimating it would have been to panic and break the king's command. They don't break the king's command. When the king says stop the building, they stop. There's a point in here that Christians need to obey the government, period, unless the government commands you to sin, which is different than legislating sinful things. And I hope you see the difference. The government can, legalize gay marriage, but that doesn't make you be gay. The government could have a homosexual holiday, but that doesn't make you be gay. Daniel can work for Nebuchadnezzar, even when Nebuchadnezzar has his everybody show up to work and worship me day. Daniel could do that. He could show up at work. He just couldn't do the actual worshiping. Underestimating this kind of stuff would be to say, oh, it's no big deal. It doesn't affect me and my culture. Just a chicken sandwich. Who cares? Underestimating. Overestimating? Chick-fil-A. You need the balance and understand that everything is a worldview issue. And God is in sovereign control over all of it. His program will advance, and it passes even through persecution. Behind every act of opposition is the basic worldview dilemma. Is Jesus the king or Darius? Is Jesus the king or Cyrus? Do you serve for Jesus' pleasure or for the pleasure of the world? If you have that lens, then you recognize behind every person who rejects Jesus Christ, behind every person who hates Christians or is opposed to Christians because of their views on this, that, or the other thing, you recognize it's not about their views on this, that, or the other thing. That's nothing to do with it. Behind it all is the basic teaching that we believe the only way to heaven is through faith in Jesus Christ.